experience was so kind of transformative of going to learn Jewish texts and traditions and go from knowing very, very little about the traditions to really having the blessing of getting this amazing education that I now love to pass that on to people who have similar questions. Just kind of meeting people exactly where they are, and especially trying to look for ways that the Jewish tradition can be very practically applied to meet kind of the innermost needs of what's going on with each of us at each kind of moment of the day. I've been tutoring bar and bat mitzvah and b'nai mitzvah students for 20 years now, and it's a moment in a student and family's life that I love being involved with so much. It's kind of my favorite inflection point for Jewish education and Torah teaching. It is a moment when an entire family is together going through the process of change, moving from one version of family to another version of family, where instead of being quite so hierarchical, where there's adults and children and the power lies fully with the adults, it's an acknowledgement of the fact that the child is on their way to being an adult and they're getting more power and more responsibility along with that. So exploring what the tradition says about that, and exploring the power and responsibility that the child is growing into in terms of how they interact with the tradition. I mean, if Judaism is going to continue, it's going to be always through the next generation, right? So this is sort of, in my mind, the beginning of a kid getting old enough to say, this is my Judaism, this is how I'm going to live it, and if I choose to, I'm going to pass it down in this way. And I just love being part of that. So one thing I've noticed is that when I begin working with a new family for b'nai mitzvah tutoring, I usually work with unaffiliated families who aren't part of synagogues, and often they have a complicated relationship to Judaism or just not a very deep knowledge of the tradition. And the parents will often say to me, can you recommend a book that I can read that will teach me about Judaism? And I really appreciate where they're coming from. But I always say, what I really recommend, I mean, there are amazing books out there and you should do that as well. But what I really recommend is starting to try some of the rituals, because it's less categorizing and thinking about that helps us kind of understand what Judaism is, I think, and it's more living it. And I think that is how Judaism was designed, is to be lived through rituals, some alone, some in community. And I always encourage people to just start lighting Shabbat candles on Friday night. And even if you're not doing a Shabbat dinner or not having challah or not doing the Kiddush blessing over the wine, that's fine. But just start with one simple ritual and see how it shifts time, how it shifts your relationship with the other people you're doing it with, how it changes when you do it in different situations over time. And I think that teaches you so much more about Judaism and what it is to live Jewishly than any book could.